A chandelier explodes in fire and crystal. Lord Ashford dies in total darkness. 12 guests, 12 identical lies. Grab your tea, take a seat, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. If your pulse is already racing, hit subscribe because this one will break your brain. Welcome to the Madness Conspiracy. Chapter 1: The Night the Lights Went Out. London, November 1938. Fog so thick it swallows sound, and inside the Avalon Palace Hotel, the richest birthday party of the decade rages behind locked doors. Lord Reginald Ashford, 60 years old and cruel as winter, has invited exactly 12 guests to the top-floor Crystal Ballroom. No servants after 10, no phones, no escape until dawn. Just champagne, hatred, and a 3-tiered cake glowing under £1 million of chandelier. At 11:55, the orchestra finishes the last waltz. The great lights flicker once and die. 37 seconds of perfect black. When the emergency lamps flare back, every candle on the cake is still burning, but Ashford is face down in the frosting, a jeweled dagger in his heart, and the only door is still bolted from the inside. The 12 guests stand exactly where they were when the darkness began, feet planted like toy soldiers, hands at their sides, faces calm. They speak with one voice. We saw nothing, we heard nothing, we never moved, not an inch. 12 perfect alibis delivered in the same flat tone, as if they practiced in a mirror. Scotland Yard arrives at dawn, stumps around, and leaves with red faces. By noon, a telegram finds Hercule Poirot at his breakfast table. It is from Hastings. Come quickly, impossible murder, locked room, 12 liars, Avalon Palace. Poirot folds the paper with neat little fingers and smiles. The small smile that means someone is going to regret being clever. He reaches the hotel as fresh snow starts to fall, steps over the chalk outline, and begins his dance. The dagger is Lady Vivian's. The cake was cut 12 minutes before the blackout. The master switch in the basement was thrown, yet the basement door remains bolted from the ballroom side. And most delicious of all, the polished parquet shows scuff marks in a tight circle around the body. Someone moved, someone danced in the dark. Yet every evening shoe in the room is spotless. No blood, no scratches, nothing. Poirot claps his hands once, the sound sharp as a gunshot. You all tell me you became statues in the darkness, he says. But the floor says someone waltzed with death, and someone else cleaned the shoes before the lights returned. That means 2 people at least, and probably many more, working as one organism. The room is very quiet now, only the snow tapping the windows. He walks to the tall sealed window, runs a finger along the sill, and holds up a smear of black grease. 70 feet straight down to the street, hidden by fog, a rope could descend and return, and no one outside would ever see. Yet the latch is closed again from the inside. Poirot turns, eyes bright as winter. They rehearsed this, he whispers. Every guest, every second, every lie. A play performed 100 times in secret. But why? Why would 11 people shield one killer? Hastings shivers because he already knows the answer, forming in that incredible brain. Either one monster controls the 12, or the 12 decided together that Lord Ashford had to die. And that is the true horror hiding behind their perfect smiles. Poirot looks up at the broken chandelier, at the blood on the cake, at 12 frozen faces, and speaks so softly only the snow hears. The murder was easy, my friends. Hiding it took genius. But genius always leaves one tiny thread, and Hercule Poirot has already found it. The fog thickens, the lies tighten, and the game of madness has only just begun.
Chapter 2. The 12 Masks. Poirot does not interview the suspects in the little side room the police prepared for him. He insists on keeping them all together in the ballroom, exactly where the murder happened. He wants the chandelier above their heads, the blood still sticky on the tablecloth, the faint smell of burnt wiring in the air. He says, "Atmosphere, my dear Hastings, is everything when one wishes to watch 12 masks begin to crack." He arranges 12 gilt chairs in a perfect circle, facing inward like a tribunal. Then he places a 13th chair for himself, right in the middle beneath the dangling wreckage of crystal. He sits, twirls his cane once, and begins not with questions, but with compliments. "How beautifully you all lie," he says, almost purring. "The harmony is magnificent. 12 voices, 1 melody. It is art." Some laugh nervously, some look at the floor, some stare straight at him with arctic eyes, but nobody leaves the circle. He starts with the easiest mask, Lady Vivian Black, the former mistress. She is wearing scarlet tonight, the color of danger and unpaid bills. Poirot lifts the murder dagger from the evidence envelope and holds it to the light. The rubies in the handle flash like drops of new blood. "A pretty toy," he says, "yet you told the police you have never seen it before." Lady Vivian shrugs one perfect shoulder. "A detective, things turn up at parties." Poirot smiles. "Curious, because the blade is engraved inside the fuller with tiny letters, V and R entwined. Your initials, Vivian Rose, when you were on the stage in Vienna, 1929. You kept this dagger as a souvenir from the night Crown Prince Rudolph proposed and then shot himself the next morning. A romantic woman keeps such things." The temperature in the circle drops 10 degrees. Lady Vivian lights a cigarette with fingers that do not shake and says nothing. Next, he turns to Celeste Ashford, the 28-year-old widow, dripping in diamonds that now legally belong to her. "Madame," he says, "your grief is exquisite. I have seen professional mourners in Naples who could learn from you. Yet, when the lights came back on, your left hand was already wearing the dead man's signet ring, a ring he never removed, even to wash. You slipped it from his finger in the dark, did you not? To make certain the will could not be challenged." Celeste touches the ring as if it burns her. "A wife may take her husband's ring," she answers, voice like ice cracking. Poirot nods. "Of course, but the ring is still warm from his skin in the police photograph taken 6 minutes after death. Warmth does not last long in a room without heat. Someone placed it on your finger seconds before the lights returned. someone who loves you very much, or who is paid very well. He moves around the circle slowly, like a clockwork toy. Victor Ashford, the bitter brother, red-faced from brandy. You were disinherited 3 weeks ago, were you not? Yet tonight you toasted your brother's health with real tears in your eyes. Tears of joy, perhaps. Dorothy Steele, the American heiress in midnight blue silk. You offered to buy the fleet for half its value only yesterday. Lord Ashford laughed in your face. Tonight, he cannot laugh any more. Marcus Finch, the secretary, pale, nervous, always pushing his spectacles up. You carry in your pocket a little black notebook, do you not? The one that lists every bribe, every threat, every name. It is missing tonight. Someone took it from you in the dark, and you dare not ask for it back. One by one, the masks tighten. He tells the famous actress that her alibi places her 3 feet to the left of where her perfume lingers in the air. He tells the bishop that the scuff marks on the floor match the silver tips of his handmade shoes from Rome. He tells the French countess that her diamond brooch is fastened upside down, the way it would be if someone unclipped it in blackness and clipped it back in haste. Every tiny truth lands like a pebble in still water, and the ripples reach every face. Halfway through the circle, something shifts. The lies stop being polite. Lord Victor stands up, face purple. "This is harassment," he shouts. "We are victims here." "Sit down, please," says Poirot gently. "You stood up exactly 37 minutes ago when the clock on the mantel struck 3. The same length of time the lights were out last night. A coincidence, perhaps?" Victor sits. Poirot changes tactics. He asks them all to close their eyes and remember the darkness. "Describe it," he says. "What did you feel?" The answers come fast. Cold. Fear. Nothing. Silence. Then young Lord Edward, the youngest guest, only 22 and already drunk on absinthe, whispers, "I felt watched." Every eye in the circle flicks toward him and away again. Poirot pounces. "Watched by whom, mon Jean?" Edward goes white. "By all of them," he mumbles. "They were waiting for something. Waiting for the lights to come back so they could stop pretending." The silence that follows is so complete, Hastings hears the snow sliding off the windows outside. Poirot stands slowly, brushing imaginary dust from his coat. He says, "Thank you. You have just told me everything." He walks to the birthday cake, still on its silver stand, picks up the long silver knife that was used to cut it earlier in the evening. "This knife," he says, "was replaced after the murder. The original had a chip in the blade from when Lord Ashford threw it at his brother in Biarritz last year. The chip is gone. Someone swapped the knives in the dark so that when the police test for blood, only the little jeweled dagger will be guilty. A small thing, but it tells us the plan was meticulous and rehearsed down to the cutlery." He lays the cake knife across his palm like a surgeon. Now we know there were at least 3 separate actions in those 37 seconds. 1. The murder. 2. The cleaning of shoes and swapping of evidence. 3. The lowering and raising of a rope outside the window. That needs minimum 6 hands, maybe more. And every single person in this room played their part, or stood guard while others did.
He looks around the circle slowly. The question is no longer who killed Lord Ashford. The question is why 11 people decided his death was worth more than their souls. Lady Vivian drops her cigarette into a champagne flute where it hisses and dies. Dorothy Steele begins to laugh, the low, dangerous laugh of someone who has killed before and will kill again. Victor Ashford stares at the blood on the carpet as if seeing it for the first time. And somewhere in the circle a clock begins to chime 4 slow notes. Poirot raises one finger. Patience, mes amis. The masks are slipping, but the real face underneath is still hiding. In the next hour, one of you will try to run. One of you will try to bribe me. And one of you will try to put another dagger between my ribs. I am counting on it, because only when someone moves will the rest of the statue crack wide open. He sits again beneath the broken chandelier, folds his small hands and waits. The snow falls harder. The 12 masks stare back at him, and the ballroom holds its breath for the next lie to break.
Chapter 3. The Thread in the Dark. Poirot does not wait long. At exactly 4:27, the French Countess Elise de Montfort rises with the grace of a woman leaving the opera and announces she feels faint. She asks permission to fetch her pills from the cloakroom downstairs. Poirot bows as if she were royalty and says, "Of course, madame, but Captain Hastings will accompany you." The moment the door closes behind them, the circle exhales. Victor Ashford pours himself another brandy with shaking hands. Dorothy Steele lights a thin black cigar. Lady Vivian begins to hum a waltz under her breath. They think the pressure is off for a few minutes. They are wrong. In the marble corridor outside, Hastings walks 3 polite steps behind the Countess. She glides like smoke, yet when they reach the grand staircase, she suddenly stumbles. Her hand flies to her throat, her eyes roll back, and she falls. Hastings lunges to catch her and feels something sharp prick his wrist. A tiny needle, no longer than a rose thorn, glints between her fingers. He has just enough time to swear before his knees buckle. The Countess catches him instead, surprisingly strong, and drags him into the cloakroom. She is already pulling a small pistol from her garter when the lights in the corridor go out again, this time for only 3 seconds. When they return, she is sprawled on the floor unconscious, and Poirot stands over her, holding a silk scarf twisted tight around her wrist. He looks almost disappointed. "Madame," he sighs, "you should have chosen poison. Needles are so obvious." Back in the ballroom, Poirot drags the unconscious Countess by the ankles and deposits her in the circle like a broken doll. He holds up the tiny needle to the chandelier light. "Curare, South American, very fast, very rare. 1 scratch and Captain Hastings would have died smiling in 30 seconds. Fortunately, I borrowed this scarf from Lady Vivian earlier. Silk is difficult to pierce." He smiles at the circle. "Who supplied the poison, I wonder? Who taught our Countess this pretty parlor trick?" No one answers, but Marcus Finch, the secretary, has gone the color of old parchment. Poirot kneels beside the Countess and gently removes her left earring. Inside the gold setting is a tiny glass ampule, still half full of the same clear liquid. He holds it up so everyone can see. A woman does not carry spare death in her jewelry unless she expects to need it more than once tonight. The circle shifts uneasily.
Victor mutters something about foreign hysterics. Dorothy Steele blows a perfect smoke ring and watches it dissolve. Poirot stands. "We are progressing," he says. "First, the murder. Second, the attempt on my friend. Soon, the third act. Someone will try to destroy the evidence. I have been waiting for the third act all evening." He walks to the great fireplace, where the birthday telegrams are still pinned to the mantel in a gay little row. He lifts one down, a crimsoned envelope sealed with black wax. The message inside is written in green ink. "Happy birthday, darling. May this be your last." No signature. Poirot turns the card over. On the back, someone has drawn a perfect circle of 12 tiny stick figures holding hands. In the center is a 13th figure with a knife in its back. The drawing is childlike, yet every face is recognizable. There is Victor. There is Celeste. There is even the bishop. Poirot holds the card high. Someone sent this to Lord Ashford 3 days ago. Someone who knew exactly what would happen tonight. Someone in this room. The fire crackles louder as if laughing. Lady Vivian stands so quickly her chair falls backward. She points at Dorothy Steele. "She sent it," she screams. "The American witch. She wanted the fleet. She wanted him dead." Dorothy does not even blink. "Sit down, darling," she says, voice lazy and lethal. "You are making a scene." But the damage is done. The circle fractures for the first time. Accusations fly like bullets. The bishop calls Victor a drunken fool. Marcus Finch shouts that Celeste forged the new will. Young Edward begins to cry. Only Poirot remains calm in the center, twirling the crimson card between his fingers. He waits until the shouting dies into exhausted silence, then speaks so softly they have to lean in to hear. "Beautiful," he says. "The masks are not merely slipping now, they are tearing. But you still protect the one thing you all agreed to hide. Not the killer, the reason." He lets the card flutter into the fire, where it curls black and vanishes. "Tell me," he says, "when did the 12 of you decide that Lord Ashford had to die together? Because that is the only explanation left. One mind planned it. 11 hands obediently carried it out. And the thread that ties you all is still hidden. But threads, when pulled, always lead back to the one who tied the knot." He looks slowly around the ruined circle. "I am pulling now, and someone in this room is about to feel the noose." Outside, the snow has turned to sleet, lashing the windows like angry ghosts. Inside the ballroom, the fire sputters. 12 masks hang in tatters, and Poirot smiles, the small, terrible smile that means the real killing is only just beginning.
Chapter 4. The Pact of the 12. Poirot lets the silence stretch until it hurts. He walks to the great double doors, still bolted from the inside, and taps the heavy iron bolt twice with his cane. This bolt, he says, was drawn at 10 o'clock by Lord Ashford himself. No servant has touched it since. Yet at 11:55, when the lights died, someone threw the master switch in the basement 70 feet below. Someone else opened a sealed window, dropped a rope into the fog, and hauled it back. Someone else cleaned 12 pairs of shoes, wiped fingerprints from the dagger, and swapped the cake knife. All in 37 seconds. He turns back to the circle. That is not murder, my friends. That is choreography. A dance rehearsed until every foot knew exactly where to fall in perfect darkness. He reaches into his overcoat and produces a single sheet of thick cream paper, folded once. The 12 guests freeze as if the temperature has dropped 20 degrees. Poirot unfolds it slowly. This, he says, was found inside the lining of Lord Ashford's dinner jacket when the police undressed the body. A list written in his own hand, dated 1 month ago. 12 names, your names. Next to each name, a sum of money ranging from £50,000 to £200,000. At the bottom, a single line in red ink. Payment on my death or exposure on the 1st of December. He lets the paper flutter onto the blood-stained tablecloth. Blackmail. That is the thread I promised you. Lord Ashford was bleeding you all dry, and the 1st of December was only 9 days away. Dorothy Steele is the first to laugh, but it is not the lazy laugh from before. It is sharp and cracked like thin ice. So the old spider finally wrote it down, she says. We always knew he would. Victor Ashford slams his glass so hard, the stem snaps. He was my brother, he roars. He had no right. Celeste Ashford touches the stolen signet ring and whispers, he had every right. He owned us. Every dirty secret, every forged document, every body buried in foreign soil. He owned the proof. Poirot raises one finger. Exactly. So 9 days before the money was due, you 12 received identical invitations to this birthday party. No plus ones, no secretaries, no exceptions. An invitation you could not refuse, because refusal meant ruin. You arrived separately, you smiled, you drank champagne. But somewhere between the soup and the soufflé, you made a pact. 1 night, 1 room, 1 death. And no one would ever know who held the dagger, because all 12 hands would be equally red. Young Edward is sobbing now, shoulders shaking. I didn't want to, he whispers. They said if I didn't come, they would send the photographs to my mother. The bishop crosses himself quickly, as if the gesture can wipe away 20 years of embezzlement. Lady Vivian lights another cigarette with the butt of the last. We voted, she says, voice flat. 11 to 1. Marcus Finch was the only one who wanted to pay. We decided paying once meant paying forever. So we stopped paying. Poirot nods as if a child has recited a lesson perfectly. And the choreography, who designed it? Silence. Then Dorothy Steele leans forward, the black cigar glowing like a demon eye. A man you never met, Monsieur Poirot. He called himself the Conductor. He contacted each of us separately, gave us our parts, told us exactly where to stand, what to say, when to freeze. He even chose the 37 seconds, said it was the perfect length for terror and for work. We never saw his face. We only heard his voice on the telephone. Calm, precise, English, but not quite. Poirot's eyes glitter. And the price for his services? Half the blackmail money each of us owed, paid into a numbered account in Zurich the morning after the murder. He smiles. Very elegant. A conductor who never steps onto the stage, yet the orchestra plays perfectly. He looks around the ruined circle. But orchestras can turn on their conductor, and someone in this room has already decided to do exactly that. Because the money has not been paid, has it? The Zurich account is empty. Someone betrayed the pact. The accusation lands like a bomb. 12 heads swivel, searching for the traitor. Victor accuses Dorothy. Dorothy accuses Celeste. Celeste accuses the weeping boy. The bishop accuses everyone and no one. Only Marcus Finch, the secretary, sits very still, staring at his own shaking hands. Poirot watches him the way a cat watches a mouse that has forgotten how to run. He steps close to Finch and speaks almost kindly. "You were supposed to transfer the money yesterday, were you not? But you did not. You kept it, all of it, £2,000,000, enough to disappear forever." Finch looks up, eyes wild. "They would have killed me anyway," he whispers. "Once the conductor had his share, the rest would share the rest of me. I was the only one who could link the account to their names. So I ran with the money instead." He laughs, a high, broken sound. "I was wrong." Poirot pats his shoulder. "No, mon ami, you were merely early. The killing has not stopped with Lord Ashford. It has only changed its target." He turns to the circle. "The conductor knows one of you has stolen his fee. He is watching, and very soon he will send someone to collect. Not with words, with the same jeweled dagger perhaps, or something quieter." Outside, the storm breaks fully. Thunder rolls over London like artillery. Inside the ballroom, the fire dies to embers. 12 masks are gone. 12 naked faces stare at the little Belgian who has just turned their perfect prime into a death sentence. And for the first time all night, someone screams.
Chapter 5. The Conductor Calls. The scream still hangs in the air when every light in the ballroom dies again, this time without a flicker of warning. Total blackness swallows the room for the second time in 24 hours, but now there is no orchestra, no birthday cake, no polite pretense, only raw animal terror. Hastings reaches automatically for his service revolver and finds Poirot's small hand already clamped around his wrist, steady as iron. "Silence, mon ami," says the quiet voice beside him. "Listens." From somewhere inside the darkness comes the soft metallic click of a telephone being lifted off the hook. The Avalon Palace has no telephones in the ballroom. The lines were cut on Lord Ashford's orders, yet the clicking repeats 3 times. Then a voice speaks, not loud, but perfectly clear. The same calm, precise English, not quite English, the 12 have heard in their nightmares for weeks. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," says the conductor. "I see the little Belgian has been busy. Congratulations, Monsieur Poirot. You have broken my orchestra. Unfortunately, broken instruments still have to pay for the concert. The money was due at midnight. It is now 5 o'clock. You have 1 hour. Return what was promised to the account you already know, or the world will learn exactly how Lord Ashford died and who helped him into his grave. Every newspaper, every embassy, every loving family will receive a complete set of photographs, documents, and sound recordings. You have 60 minutes. The line goes dead with another soft click, and the lights blaze back on as suddenly as they vanished. 12 faces stare at the telephone that should not exist. It stands on the small table beside the fireplace, an old-fashioned black Bakelite model that was not there an hour ago. Its cord runs straight down into the carpet and disappears beneath the floorboards like a snake vanishing into grass. Dorothy Steele is the first to move. She lunges for the receiver, but Poirot is faster. He lifts it gently to his ear, listens for 3 seconds, and replaces it with a small, sad smile. "He is gone," he says, "but he was never far." Marcus Finch makes a sound like a wounded dog and bolts for the door. His hands scrabble at the iron bolt, but before he can pull it free, Victor Ashford grabs him by the throat and slams him against the wall. "You little rat," Victor roars. "You stole our money, and now you've killed us all." Finch's spectacles fly across the room, his face turning purple, but Celeste Ashford steps between them, cool as winter moonlight. "Let him go," she says. "If he dies, we never find the money, and we all hang separately instead of together." Victor releases the secretary, who collapses gasping. No one helps him up. Poirot watches the scene with bright, unblinking eyes, then claps his hands once, the way a schoolmaster calls unruly children to order. "Enough," he says. "We have 57 minutes. The conductor is a professional. He will not bluff. At 6 o'clock, envelopes will leave this hotel by a dozen different hands, and by breakfast, London, Paris, New York, and Cairo will know everything, unless we give him what he wants, or we give him something he wants more." He turns to Finch, who is crawling on all fours, searching for his glasses. "You transferred the money to a second account, not a private one only you can reach?" Finch nods miserably. Poirot smiles. "Excellent. Then we have a bargaining chip after all." He strides to the mysterious telephone, lifts the receiver, and dials 0. The switchboard girl answers in a sleepy voice. Poirot's tone becomes crisp, military, and unmistakably upper class. "This is Chief Inspector Japp, Scotland Yard," he says. "Connect me to the basement substation at once in an emergency." 30 seconds later, he is speaking to a puzzled night porter, who confirms that yes, a temporary telephone line was installed 2 days ago for the party, by order of Lord Ashford himself, running from the ballroom fireplace directly to the old freight elevator shaft. Poirot thanks the man politely and hangs up. "The snake has shown us its path," he murmurs. "Now we follow it." While Hastings guards the door, Poirot kneels and pries up the carpet with his penknife. Beneath it, the floorboards have been neatly sawn in a perfect square. He lifts the section like a trapdoor, revealing a narrow crawl space and the black telephone cable disappearing downward. The smell that rises is damp stone and machine oil. "The freight elevator shaft," says someone has been living beneath us all night, perhaps for days, watching, listening, waiting to pull strings. He lowers the square back into place and dusts his hands. The conductor did not trust his orchestra after all. Very wise. 43 minutes remain. The 12 have become a single frightened creature with 24 eyes darting at shadows. Lady Vivian pours the last of the champagne and drinks it straight from the bottle. The bishop prays in Latin under his breath. Young Edward curls into a ball and rocks. Only Dorothy Steele seems almost amused. She stubs out her cigar on the birthday cake and says, "Well, Monsieur Poirot, what is it, to pay the devil or dance with him?" Poirot regards her for a long moment, then turns to the entire circle. "Neither," he says. "We give him a different devil altogether, one he cannot refuse." He asks for complete silence, then walks to the telephone, lifts the receiver, and waits. Exactly 90 seconds later, it rings once. He answers in French too rapidly for most of the room to follow, but Hastings patches the gist and offers a new price, the conductor's own name delivered on a silver platter in exchange for the evidence destroyed forever. There is a long pause on the other end, then a soft laugh. "You intrigue me, little Belgian," says the voice. "You have 30 minutes. Bring me the name in person, basement level, freight elevator. Come alone, or the deal dies, and so do your new friends." The line clicks dead again. Poirot replaces the receiver and looks at the 12 exhausted, terrified people who only hours ago believed themselves the cleverest criminals in Europe. He smiles that small, terrible smile they have come to dread. "Courage, mes amis," he says. "The final movement is about to begin, and this time I shall conduct." He buttons his overcoat, straightens his hat, and walks toward the bolted door. Hastings starts after him, but Poirot raises one finger. "Non, mon cher,
This part is for one pair of feet only. Lock the door behind me and shoot anyone who tries to follow, friend or foe." He slips the bolt, steps into the corridor, and is gone. The ballroom clock strikes 6:15. The fire is cold ashes now. 12 murderers and 1 detective have become pawns on a board far larger than they ever imagined, and somewhere beneath their feet, in the black throat of the hotel, the conductor waits with open hands and a dagger that has already tasted blood once tonight. The madness is no longer a conspiracy, it is a countdown.
Chapter 6. The Descent. Poirot closes the ballroom door behind him with the soft finality of a coffin lid. The corridor is lit only by low emergency lamps the color of old bruises. Snow lashes the tall windows, turning the glass into moving water. He walks without hurry, heels clicking a measured rhythm on the marble until he reaches the service stairs marked "Staff Only." He opens the door, and the darkness below breathes cold iron and coal dust up at him. He does not hesitate. He descends. 70 steps bring him to the basement level. The freight elevator stands open like a waiting mouth, its cage wrapped in chains that were not there yesterday. The black telephone cable he saw beneath the ballroom floor runs along the wall, then vanishes into a newly cut hole no wider than a man's fist. Someone has been busy. Poirot removes his gloves, folds them neatly into his pocket, and steps into the cage. There is no button panel, only a single brass lever. He pulls it. The cage shutters, drops 2 feet, and stops. The overhead bulb flickers once and dies. Darkness again, but this time it is warm and smells faintly of Turkish tobacco. A match flares 6 feet in front of him. In its small circle of light stands a tall man in evening dress, immaculate white tie, patent shoes, a black silk mask covering the upper half of his face. The match travels to the tip of a cigarette and dies. Only the red coal remains, floating in the black. "Monsieur Poirot," says the calm voice he heard upstairs, "is punctual. I admire punctuality. Step out of the cage, please." Poirot obeys. The floor beneath his feet is rough concrete. Somewhere water drips in slow, deliberate beats. "You promised me a name," asks the conductor. "I promised you the destruction of every photograph, every ledger, every recording. We are both men of our word, I believe." Poirot tilts his head. "Almost. First, a question. How did you watch us tonight?" The red coal rises and falls. A small smile. There are 12 crystal drops on the great chandelier that are not crystal at all. German glass lenses, no larger than shirt buttons. Wires no thicker than hairs run inside the bronze arms to a listening post beneath the floor. When the chandelier crashed at midnight, the wires broke, of course. I was forced to come upstairs in person and place the telephone. A pity, the view was excellent. Poirot nods as if admiring a colleague. Ingenious. And the rope from the window? A simple sailor's bosun's chair on a silent winch. My assistant waited on the roof across the street. Fog is a wonderful curtain. He lowers the cigarette. Enough admiration. The name. Poirot reaches slowly into his overcoat and withdraws not a paper, but the small black notebook Marcus Finch has been missing all evening. He opens it to a page marked with a crimson ribbon. "You wish the name of the person who stole your £2 million, says Poirot. "Here it is." He turns the notebook so the masked man can read. Written in Finch's neat copperplate is a single line repeated 12 times. "The thief is you." The cigarette pauses halfway to the masked lips. "Read on," says Poirot softly. Each of the 12 paid their share into the Zurich account as instructed. But the account was never yours. It was opened by Lord Ashford himself 6 months ago. He hired you not to kill him, but to stage his death,
A fake murder, a locked room, a perfect conspiracy that would terrify his victims into paying triple blackmail for the rest of their lives. You were the whip he intended to crack forever. But you discovered the truth 3 weeks ago, did you not? You decided to take the money and disappear. So you turned the fake murder into a real one and stabbed him in the dark. The perfect double cross. The red coal flares bright as the man inhales sharply. Ashford trusted you, Poirot, because you are an English aristocracy fallen on hard times. The Honourable Lionel St. John de Vere, youngest son of the Duke of Westmoreland. Sent down from Oxford for cheating at cards, ruined at Monte Carlo, forbidden the family estates. You sold secrets during the war, then sold silence after it. Blackmail became your profession. When Ashford offered you £50,000 to play the conductor, you accepted. But 50,000 is never enough for a man who has tasted millions. The masked man lets the cigarette fall and crushes it beneath the shining shoe. "Very pretty story, little Belgian," he says, voice still calm, but the calm of a wire stretched to breaking. "Prove it." Poirot smiles, gladly. "First, the cigarette you smoke only Passing Cloud, Oval Turkish, the brand favored by the Duke, your father, before he cut you off. Second, the shoes are handmade by Lob, the only cobbler who places the nail pattern in the shape of a tiny crown on the left heel. I noticed it when you stepped from the shadows. Third, your height is 6 feet 3 inches, the exact height of the man who lowered the bosun's chair from the roof opposite. And fourth, he reaches into his pocket again and produces the crimson birthday telegram, the one with the stick figures. On the back, in green ink beneath the childish drawing, is a monogram so faint it needs a glass to read. LSJD, Lionel St. John de Vere. The conductor stands motionless for 5 long seconds. Then he laughs, soft, genuine, amused. "My God," he says, "you are everything they claim. I should have killed you the moment you entered the basement." "You still can," says Poirot almost gently, "but then you will never leave this hotel alive. My friend Hastings has orders to shoot the first person who tries to open the ballroom door. The police are waiting in the lobby, summoned by a telephone call I made from the switchboard before descending, and the 12 upstairs have just discovered that their conductor is the only man who still holds every piece of real evidence against them. They will tear you apart with their bare hands to save themselves." For the first time, the mask slips, literally. The conductor reaches up and pulls the silk away. The face beneath is handsome, aristocratic, 35 years old, ruined by cruelty and late nights. "So, now," Poirot asks quietly, "you have your killer? Do you hand me to the wolves upstairs or to your friends at Scotland Yard?" "Neither," answers Poirot. "I will give you something better. A third choice." He steps aside, revealing the freight elevator cage. The chains are gone. The lever glows faintly in the darkness. The service tunnel at the rear of the building leads to the underground goods yard. A freight train leaves for Dover in 18 minutes. From Dover, a fishing boat waits to take one passenger to Ostend tonight. No questions, no papers. £100,000 in mixed notes is already aboard. Enough to vanish forever. The 12 upstairs will believe you perished in the shaft. The police will find a body burned beyond recognition when the boiler explodes at dawn. An unfortunate accident. The conductor stares at him, eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because," says Hercule Poirot, "justice is not always the same as law. Lord Ashford destroyed lives for 30 years. You destroyed one monster. The 12 upstairs are guilty of conspiracy, but not of the final blow. Let them live with what they planned. Let them look over their shoulders every day for the rest of their lives, wondering if the conductor will return. Fear is a heavier chain than any prison. He reaches into his pocket one last time and holds out a first-class railway ticket and a silver lighter engraved with the De Vere crest. "Your father's lighter," says Poirot. "He left it at White's last month. I borrowed it this evening. Take it. Remember who you were born to be, not what you became." Lionel St. John de Vere looks at the lighter for a long moment. Then he takes it, closes his fist around it, and steps into the elevator cage. "You are a strange little man, Hercule Poirot," he says, "but perhaps the only honest one I ever met." The cage rattles upward and is gone. Poirot stands alone in the darkness, listening to the dripping water, counting heartbeats, until the silence tells him the man has truly vanished. Then he climbs the 70 steps back to the ballroom and opens the door. The 12 look up, faces gray with waiting. "It is finished," says Poirot quietly. "The conductor is dead. The evidence burned with him. You are free." No one cheers, no one even speaks. They only stare at the small Belgian who has just handed them their lives wrapped in terror.
Chapter 7. The Dawn That Never Forgives. Poirot steps back into the ballroom and closes the great doors behind him with the same soft click that ended the previous act. The 12 do not move. They sit among the ruins of the night. Broken crystal, spilled champagne, the cold corpse of Lord Ashford still face down in his own birthday cake. Dawn is bleeding pale gray through the high windows, turning the blood on the carpet black. He walks to the center of the circle, removes his hat, and places it on the table beside the murdered man's head. Then he speaks, not loudly, but every word lands like a judge's gavel. "You are free," he repeats, "free to leave this room, free to inherit, free to marry again, free to buy fleets and bishoprics and lovers. The conductor is gone. The photographs, the ledgers, the recordings, all destroyed. No court on earth can touch you now." A long silence. Then Dorothy Steele laughs once, a short, cracked sound. "Free," she says, tasting the word like spoiled wine. "Exactly," says Poirot. "Free to live with what you did. Free to remember every second of those 37 seconds when you chose to become murderers together. Free to wake at 3 in the morning for the rest of your lives, wondering if the telephone will ring again, and a calm voice will ask why the money never arrived. That is the sentence I give you. Not prison, not the rope. Memory." He turns slowly, meeting every pair of eyes. "Lady Vivian, you will see the flash of that ruby dagger every time you close your eyes to sleep. Celeste, you will feel the dead man's ring grow colder on your finger until the day you die. Victor, you will toast your brother's health in every glass of brandy and choke on it. Edward, you will never again be 22. And all of you, every one, will look at the other 11 across dinner tables and bridge tables and wonder which hand finally slid the blade home. Because even now you do not know. I never told you. I never will." Young Edward begins to cry again, silently this time, tears cutting clean paths through the powder on his cheeks. The bishop's lips move in a prayer that has no sound. Marcus Finch stares up a place where the telephone stood, as if expecting it to sprout from the carpet again. Poirot picks up his hat, brushes an invisible speck from the brim. "One last thing," he says. The freight elevator shaft will explode in 17 minutes. A ruptured gas main. Tragic accident. The hotel will survive. The ballroom will be sealed for repairs. When the police finally break in, they will find Lord Ashford stabbed with his mistress's dagger. 12 guests vanished into the fog. And no explanation that any jury will ever believe. The perfect locked room mystery, unsolved forever. The newspapers will call it the crime of the century. You will read about yourselves at breakfast for the next 10 years and smile over your coffee. He walks to the doors, pauses with his hand on the bolt. You planned a murder that could never be proved. Congratulations. You succeeded beyond your wildest dreams. Live with it. He draws the bolt, steps into the corridor, and does not look back. Behind him, the 12 sit motionless until the muffled boom of the explosion rolls up from the bowels of the hotel like distant thunder. Dust drifts from the ceiling. A single remaining crystal drop falls from the ruined chandelier and shatters into 1,000 needles of light. Then, one by one, they stand. No one speaks. They collect coats and handbags and walking sticks, as though dressing for a funeral that has no corpse. They file out through the service door, down the back stairs, into the melting snow of a city that will never know what happened on the top floor of the Avalon Palace. Years later, at society weddings and charity balls, people will sometimes notice a strange thing. Whenever 12 particular guests find themselves in the same room, they arrange themselves without thinking in a perfect circle, feet exactly where they stood that night, eyes fixed on the empty center where a small Belgian once stood. They never speak of it. They never need to. The circle is their prison, invisible and unbreakable. And somewhere on a sun-drenched terrace above the Mediterranean, a tall man in white linen smokes oval Turkish cigarettes and watches the horizon with eyes that have forgotten how to sleep. He still has his father's silver lighter. Sometimes, when the mistral blows cold off the sea, he flicks it open and closed, listening to a rhythm only he can hear. 37 seconds, over and over, forever. The madness conspiracy is over. The madness itself has only just begun.
Chapter 8. The Little Grey Cells at Rest. Poirot does not return to his suite at the Ritz. Instead, he takes a taxi-cab to the quiet Georgian house in Whitehaven Mansions, where the fire is always laid, and George waits with hot chocolate and perfect silence. It is barely 7 in the morning when he lets himself in, yet George is already there, overcoat ready, eyes asking nothing. Poirot hands him the hat, the cane, the gloves, and finally the small black notebook still marked with the crimson ribbon. "Burn this, please, George," he says, "every page." George bows and disappears. Poirot never sees the notebook again. He sits in his favorite armchair, legs stretched to the fire, and closes his eyes for what he tells himself will be only a moment. The moment becomes 2 hours. When he wakes, the sun is high, and Hastings is standing in the doorway, looking rumpled and anxious, still smelling faintly of the Avalon Palace basement. "You let him go," Hastings says. It is not quite a question. Poirot opens one eye. "My friend, you say that as though I had a choice. 12 monsters created one bigger monster. I removed the bigger one. The 12 smaller ones will devour themselves slowly. That is justice of a sort." Hastings sits heavily. "They'll get away with murder." "No," says Poirot. "They will get away with living. There is a difference." He rises, pours 2 cups of chocolate and hands one to Hastings without being asked. Then he walks to the window and looks down at the slow Thames sliding past like gray silk. "You wish to know if I sleep easily," he says, without turning. "The answer is no, not tonight. Perhaps not for many nights. I released a killer into the world, a clever killer, charming when he chooses, dangerous always. One day he may kill again. That possibility sits here." He touches his heart. But the alternative was worse. 12 corrupted souls set free without a scratch to continue their corruption for decades. I weighed one life already destroyed against 12 lives that still pretended to be alive, and I chose. The little gray cells do not always like what they must do, but they do it anyway. Hastings is quiet for a long time. Then, "The newspapers are already calling it the Avalon Enigma. Scotland Yard is furious. Jap telephoned 3 times. "Let them be furious," says Poirot. "Let them chase ghosts in the fog. The truth is sometimes too heavy for the law to carry. Today, the truth weighs exactly 2 million pounds and the width of one man's conscience." He returns to his chair, sips the chocolate, and for the first time in 36 hours allows himself a small, genuine smile. "Besides," he says, "I did not entirely let him go." Hastings blinks. "What do you mean?" Poirot reaches into his waistcoat pocket and produces a silver cigarette lighter, the one engraved with the De Vere crest. He flicks it open. Inside the lid, hidden beneath the felt padding, is a circle of pale green paste, no larger than a 6pence. "A paste of curare, mixed with a slow dye," he explains, "the kind used by certain tribes on the Amazon. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to reach the bloodstream in lethal quantity. By then he will be in Buenos Aires or Cape Town, or wherever lost men go to die rich. He will feel only a gradual weakness, perhaps a little fever. He will blame the climate. One morning he will not wake up. No mark, no trace, no murder. Only a quiet ending for a man who arranged everything except his own." Hastings stares, speechless. "You disapprove?" asks Poirot gently. "I don't know what I feel," says Hastings. "Good," says Poirot. "Feeling nothing would have worried me more." He places the lighter on the mantelpiece beside a small porcelain pig and a photograph of a woman who died long ago. "Come," he says suddenly brisk, "we have earned a celebration. George has obtained tickets for the new play at the St. James's. There is a murder in the 2nd act, committed in total darkness. I am told it is very clever. We will go and I will solve it before the interval and annoy everyone around us. That is the proper way to end a case, with laughter and a little showing off." He claps Hastings on the shoulder and moves toward the bedroom to change. At the door, he pauses. "Mon ami, one day, when we are very old, and the world has forgotten the Avalon Palace altogether, you may tell the story if you wish, but leave out the lighter. Some endings are kinder when they stay in the dark." The door closes. Hastings looks at the silver lighter catching the firelight, at the quiet room, at the city beginning another ordinary day beyond the window. Then he smiles, the small, tired smile of a man who has seen justice wear 1,000 faces and recognized none of them as gentle. Somewhere far south, a tall man in white linen will flick that same lighter one last time beneath a terrace of bougainvillea and wonder why the flame suddenly feels so cold. He will never know the name of the small Belgian who gave him both escape and execution in the same courteous handshake. In Whitehaven Mansions, the fire settles into comfortable embers. Hercule Poirot adjusts his tie in the mirror, twirls his mustache to perfect points, and prepares to watch a make-believe murder on a make-believe stage.
The little grey cells, for tonight, at least, are at rest. The madness conspiracy is truly, finally, completely over.
Chapter 9. 10 years later. The circle meets again. Monte Carlo, April 1948. The war is over. Empires have crumbled, fortunes have vanished, and the casino's Belle Epoque facade gleams whiter than ever against the blue Mediterranean. In the Salle Médecin, where the highest stakes are played in near silence, 12 people arrive separately over the course of an evening, drawn by invitations none of them expected to receive. Cream envelopes, heavy black borders, no signature, only a single line in green ink. The conductor requests the pleasure of your company at table 7, 10 p.m. 10 years to the night. They have not all been in the same room since the Avalon Palace. Some are thinner, some fatter. Some walk with canes. One wears the ribbon of the Légion d'honneur, earned for wartime services no one dares mention. They recognize one another instantly and pretend not to. Yet by 5 minutes to 10, every chair at table 7 is occupied. 12 ghosts in evening dress, arranged in a perfect circle, exactly as they stood in the ballroom of blood and crystal. The croupier is new, young, nervous. He deals the first chemin de fer shoe with shaking hands because the silence around the table is heavier than any shouting he has ever heard. No one speaks, no one bets. They simply wait, eyes fixed on the empty green felt where a 13th place has been set. A single playing card, turned face down, a crystal ashtray, and a silver lighter engraved with a crest most of them remember. At 10 o'clock precisely, the light dim, for no reason anyone can explain. The great chandelier above the table flickers once, twice, exactly like the one that crashed in London a decade ago. A collective intake of breath circles the table. Then the lights steady, and a waiter in impeccable white gloves places a black Bakelite telephone on the baize in front of the empty chair. The receiver is already off the hook. Everyone hears the soft, familiar crackle of an open line. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," says the calm, precise, English not quite English voice they prayed they would never hear again. "Congratulations on your longevity. I promised you a lifetime subscription to fear. Tonight I will collect the final payment." Lady Vivian, older now but still scarlet-lipped, laughs first, a high, brittle sound that breaks in the middle. "You're dead," she says. "Poirot saw you die." "Did he?" the voice asks politely. "Or did he see what he needed to see?" Dorothy Steele, silver-haired but straight-backed, leans forward. "You got your money 10 years ago. Every penny was returned the morning after the explosion. We kept our side." "Ah, but interest accrues. Compound interest in terror is a remarkable thing. Look to your left. 11 heads turn as one. The 12th chair is no longer empty. A man sits there, tall, tanned, immaculate in white dinner jacket, a black silk mask covering the upper half of his face. The lighter rests between his gloved fingers, flicking open, closed, open, closed. The rhythm is 37 clicks long. Everyone counts without meaning to. "Impossible," whispers Celeste Ashford, now the twice-widowed Duchess of somewhere unimportant. "You're dead. Poirot saw you die." "Did he?" the voice asks politely. "Or did he see what he needed to see?" Victor Ashford Ford, red-faced and trembling with drink and fury, tries to stand. "Security!" he bellows. "This man—" "Sit down, Victor," the conductor says softly, "or the envelope under your napkin opens, and your war profiteering reaches the ears of people who still shoot traitors." Victor sits. The masked man lifts the face-down playing card. It is the ace of spades. On the back, in green ink, the childish stick-figure drawing from the birthday telegram has been reproduced. Only now the figure with the knife in the back wears a tiny perfect mustache. "A souvenir," he says, "from the only honest man any of us ever met. He died 3 years ago, quietly, in his chair, a chocolate cup still warm. I sent flowers, white roses. He would have hated them." He leans forward, and the mask catches the chandelier light like water. "Here is the new arrangement," he continues. "Once a year, on this night, wherever you are, you will receive an invitation. You will come, you will sit, you will listen, and you will place £100,000, adjusted for inflation, into the account I provide. Not because I need the money, because you need the reminder. One refusal, one absence, one police officer invited, and every secret you thought burned in that basement will bloom across the front pages of the world. You will do this as long as you breathe. When the last of you dies, the circle breaks and the conductor retires. A simple pension plan for monsters." He stands, smooth as smoke. He says, "Enjoy the rest of your lives. They belong to me now." The telephone gives a soft click and goes dead. The waiter removes it as if it had never existed. The masked man is already gone, melted into the crowd of millionaires and courtesans as though he was no more solid than memory. The 12 do not move for a long time. Then, one by one, they sign their markers, pash their chips, and leave the table without looking back. They will meet again next year, and the year after, and the year after that, always 12, always circling an empty 13th place, always paying in money and in silence. Somewhere on a yacht sliding through the dark water towards Corsica, Lionel St. John de Vere, alive, rich, untouchable, flicks the silver lighter one last time and smiles at the stars. The rhythm is perfect, 37 clicks. The orchestra still plays exactly when he raises the baton. And far away, in a quiet flat in London above a baker's shop, a small porcelain pig sits on a mantelpiece beside a photograph of a woman long dead, and a silver lighter that will never again be needed. The little grey cells are finally, truly at rest. The madness conspiracy never ended. It simply changed its conductor.
Chapter 10. The Last Lie. Monte Carlo, April 1959, 11 years after the circle first reformed at table 7. Only 7 chairs are occupied tonight. Time and heart attacks and one discreet suicide in a Paris hotel room have done what Scotland Yard and Hercule Poirot never could. The survivors are grey, thin, rich beyond dreaming, and very, very tired. The same black-bordered envelope arrived for each of them 6 weeks ago. Same green ink, same single line. Tonight, the orchestra plays its final note. Come alone. They sit in silence under the same chandelier. The crystal is newer, the faces older, the terror familiar now, almost comfortable, like an old disease. A waiter places the black Bakelite telephone in the center of the table. The receiver is lifted before it even touches the cloth.
"Good evening, my dwindling darlings," says the voice they have obeyed for 21 years. "Tonight we conclude our little symphony. One last payment, slightly larger than usual, and the circle dissolves forever. You may die in your beds at last. The account number is the same. Transfer the money now, please. I am watching." 7 pairs of shaking hands reach for checkbooks and fountain pens. The amounts are astronomical, the final ransom of guilty lives. When the last signature is dry, the voice returns, softer now, almost affectionate. "Thank you. You have been exemplary pupils. And now the epilogue you have all been waiting for. The truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, exactly as promised." A pause, the soft intake of breath before a conductor lifts the baton. There never was a conductor, not in the way you feared. The telephone gives a small electronic click, and the voice changes, loses its precise cruelty, becomes something warm, amused, unmistakably Belgian. "Bonjour, mes amis. It is I, Hercule Poirot. Or rather, it was." 7 old faces go white as the tablecloth. "You buried me in 1956, Poirot continues, and you were quite correct to do so. I died in my chair, chocolate beside me, George weeping in the kitchen. But death, like retirement, is a luxury a man in my profession can seldom afford completely. Before I departed this life, I made certain arrangements. A trust, a Swiss account, a recording studio in Brussels, and one very loyal friend who still possessed the most beautiful speaking voice in the Royal Theatre. Every year on the anniversary, she telephoned you, using my notes, my phrases, my little pauses. The money you paid went to orphanages, hospitals, and the restoration of Belgian churches destroyed in 2 wars. Not 1 franc ever reached a criminal pocket. You have been robbed by charity for 11 years, and you thanked me for the privilege." Dorothy Steele is the first to laugh, a low, cracked sound that spreads around the table until all 7 are laughing or crying or both. "But the man in the mask," Celeste whispers. "The tall Englishman, we saw him." "A recording, chérie. A gramophone record triggered by the telephone exchange, projected through hidden speakers. The mask, the white dinner jacket, the lighter, all carefully lit by my friend the stage manager from the casino theater. You saw what you expected to see, what you needed to see, the perfect ghost." Victor Ashford, 80 now and breathing through a tube hidden in his vestment, manages one last question. "And the night at the Avalon, the real night?" "Ah, that night? That night was exactly what I told you it was. 12 people agreed to murder one monster. One of you, I never discovered which, delivered the actual blow. The rest of you cleaned shoes, swapped knives, lowered ropes, and lied in perfect harmony. I could have sent you all to the gallows, but the law is clumsy with shared guilt. So I gave you something sharper, yourselves. I let the myth of the conductor live because fear, properly applied, is the most humane punishment I ever invented. You paid reparations, you looked over your shoulders, you learned what Lord Ashford never did, that a single moment can cost more than money." Silence falls, softer now, almost peaceful. The telephone gives one final click. "And now, mes anciens complices, the circle is broken, the account is closed, the recordings are destroyed. Live what years remain to you without mirrors if you can. Good night, and may God, or whatever you still believe in, forgive you. I no longer need to." The line goes dead forever. The 7 survivors sit for a long time under the chandelier that no longer threatens to fall. Then, slowly, they stand, leave generous tips they no longer fear to give, and walk out into the warm Mediterranean night. Some will die within a year. Some will last another decade. None will ever speak of this night, or of the 12, or of the small Belgian who judged them more terribly than any court on earth. In a quiet cemetery outside Brussels, a modest stone reads, Hercule Poirot, 1875-1956. He gave order to the world and mercy when order was not enough. On certain April nights, when the wind is from the south, the caretakers say they hear the faintest sound from the grave. 37 soft clicks of a silver lighter, counting out the seconds of a darkness that finally, completely, absolutely ended with the truth. The madness conspiracy is over. The little gray cells have spoken their last word, and the orchestra, at long last, is silent.